Today I'm going to show you how I made the candy that filled Candy Head Jack. Welcome to Up All Night DIY. I'm Monica. Thanks for joining me. We're making 12 different types of Halloween treats. Let's get into it. I'm using both foam clay and Model Magic today. This is foam clay that I bought a while back. It's by Pixis. So I grabbed a handful and I'll condition it by pulling it like taffy. It kind of has that texture to it, like a cross between marshmallow and taffy. I only used this clay once before and I did like it, but to be honest, I forgot all about it. And there's really not a whole lot of it in the container, so it's perfect for something like this for smaller pieces. Once I get it conditioned, I'm going to roll it into a ball. And to make this wee Marshmallow Ghost, I'll start by pulling up the end to make the little point at the top of his head. I'm just gently tugging on the clay to form the point. Then I'm going to roll it on the table to smooth it and also to lengthen the point. So now it kind of looks like a big fat Hershey kiss. To create his head, I'm going to go about halfway down and I'm going to start making an indentation with my fingers, to kind of define his head from his pudgy wee body. And I'm going to give it a wee bit of a twist, push it up there. I want the bottom to be flat so that it'll stand upright. So I'll press him down on the table. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. Really very easy, especially with this foam clay. Since this clay is bright white, there's no need to base coat him. He'll get wee dots for eyes, and I'm going to use Ceramcoat charcoal for this. I'll pull down as I'm dotting to elongate his eyes. I'm using the end of a sculpting tool, but a dowel or paintbrush handle works too. I'll give him a minute to dry. I'm going to use some sugar glitter to give him some sparkle. So I'll use a cosmetic sponge to pounce on some Mod Podge, and then I'm going to coat him with the glitter. And that's him done. Here's a close-up, and here's a close-up of him in a candy cup. Okay, let's make some unicorn pops. I roll out a log of foam clay for my base. I watched some of Cassie Smallwood's videos for directions on how to create these. She does fake bake projects. I'll link her channel in the description box for you. Check her out. She makes really cute stuff. Okay, so once I have it to the length I want it, I'll set it aside under a damp cloth just for a moment. Now I'm going to color a small amount of clay by adding a few drops of acrylic paint. This is Ceramcoat Pumpkin. I'll work it into the clay. It's messy, but it incorporates really quickly. The color will be slightly lighter, so keep that in mind if you want a bright color. You may want to use a brighter paint to get the hue that you're looking for. I'm coloring the clay in small amounts because I don't want to waste any. I can always make more if I need to. And I'm going to color all of the clay this way. So I've made some pumpkin and I've made some black clay. Then I'm going to roll into thin snakes. I cut these snakes to the same size as my white log. And I'm going to cut 2 of each, 2 orange, 2 black. So starting with the black, I'll press 2 black snakes onto my white. They're opposite each other. And then I'm going to come in and press in the 2 pumpkin snakes opposite each other, like this. And I'm going to roll it to incorporate it and to lengthen it. I guess that's about 6 to 8 inches long or so. Once it's a good length, I'll cut off the ends. Now for the fun part. We'll wrap it around the lollipop stick. I'm starting at the end of the stick and I'm twisting downward. I press it so it adheres to the stick. And as I wrap it around the stick, I'm also twisting the clay to create the swirl. I'm making sure that the layers are touching as I go down. And when I finish, I'm just going to make sure that the clay is pressed tightly to the stick at the bottom. There we go. Cute, right? I made 2 of that color combination, one's longer, and I'm going to make 2 of the yellow, orange, and white. We'll do those next. So now this time I'm adding the yellow. I used Folk Art Moon Yellow to get this color, and same thing. The yellow will go opposite each other, and then I'll add the pumpkin opposite each other. I just want to make sure it's really well stuck on there. And we'll roll it to lengthen it. Cut off the ends. And we're going to wrap it down the lolly stick. And again, I made 2 of these, one longer, one shorter. These were so much fun to create. I love the way the clay looks as you're twisting it, going down the stick. I'm so easily entertained. Okay, so once these guys are dry, I pounce over them with Teco Art multi-purpose sealer and satin finish to give them a glazed look. Aren't they cute? Check out Cassie Smallwood. She showed me how to do these. Okay, on to the swirls. So I had some of the colored clay left, so as not to waste it, I'm making wee swirls. So I'll give the clay a wee twist and coil it in on itself. So I hold both ends and twist to get that swirl going, and then I'm just going to coil it right up on itself. These made really good filler candies, and this way I'm not wasting any material. You feel me? You can make these larger too, if you want that kind of lolly. But here's a look. How cute are they? Okay, next we're going to make some Halloween meringues. Now these 2, really quick and easy. So, we roll out the foam clay and create a Hershey Kiss shape again, like we did with the ghost. And I'm going to make 3 of these. So I just want to make sure I have a good point there and a nice flat bottom. Now I'm going to add some of the orange and black snakes. I start at the point and run the snake down the side, just pressing it on to take the shape of the kiss or the meringue. Okay, so now I'm going to go opposite that first orange one. And I'm going to add 4 orange and then 4 black, and they're going to be evenly spaced. So now that I have the 4 orange on, I'm going to go in between with the black. And once again, once it dries, I'm going to actually pounce matte Mod Podge over these because I don't want these to be shiny. But look how cute and so easy, right? Let's make a candy corn donut. For the donut, we're going to switch over to Model Magic. You can use either clay for this, doesn't really matter. I'll condition it by kneading it. So I'm going to roll the clay into a ball, and I'll flatten it a wee bit with the palm of my hand. I want this to have some thickness to it, so I'm going to say about 1 inch thick or so. Trying to keep it nice and round, like a donut. I'll punch out the donut hole with this fondant cutter, but you can use a paintbrush handle or even your finger to make the hole. Right. So we're going to let that dry a wee bit before we paint it. I'm using Ceramic Coat Maple Sugar Tan to base coat the donut, and I'm just going to give it 1 coat because we're going to cover the front with faux frosting, so 1 coat will do. To make the frosting, I'll mix Jo Sonja texture paste with acrylic paint. Caulk can be used for this frosting too, and you know, you're going to prepare it the exact same way, just by mixing in the paint. I've already mixed up some pumpkin color in my white frosting. Now I'm using Folk Art Moon Yellow to make the yellow frosting. I'm just using a craft stick to mix it up, and I'll also apply it with the same craft stick. I want this to have a candy corn presentation to it, so I'm going to start with the white. I probably could have been a little neater with this. Next I'm going to dab on the orange. Again, kind of sloppy, but that's okay, right? And finally the yellow. Now I'm going to sprinkle it with some sugar glitter. I was going to make polymer clay jimmies to sprinkle on, but we're in the middle of a heat wave. I didn't really want to turn on the oven, so we'll make those next time. Yep, there you go. There's our wee donut. Every Halloween candy bucket needs a chocolate bar, so that's what's next. I'll flatten some clay to the thickness of a candy bar, and I'm going to punch out a square with my fondant cutter. I bought these fondant cutters at AC Moore's years ago. They are a Wilton product, though, so they may still have them. Maybe check the Wilton website or something. I'm going to cut the square in half, giving me 2 rectangles, like pieces snapped off a Hershey bar. You feel me? So now I'm going to use my alphabet stamps to impress the word Choco on the clay for a wee bit of detail. To make my full candy bar, I roll out more clay, and I use my large cutter to create the shape. This will be shorter than a real candy bar because I'll be adding it to the candy head jack, so I want it to look like most of it is in the bucket. I use my small square to create impressions on the clay to mimic the candy sections. Once they're dry, I give them 2 coats of Americana Mississippi mud, front and back. I think this really looks like milk chocolate, this color. And now once the paint has dried on these, I'll pounce them with the Deco Art multi-purpose sealer. Again, that's a satin finish, so it'll have a little bit of a glaze look. Finally, I'm going to wrap the larger chocolate bar with candy foil for a finishing touch. Again, I bought these candy foils at AC Moore a million years ago. I mean, how long have they been out of business? So that tells you how long I've had these. And that's it. That's our chocolate bars done. Now let's make some Twizzlers, one of my favorite candies. To make our Twizzlers, I'll mix some bright red Americana paint with my Model Magic, same way as I did with the foam clay. If you don't know what Twizzlers are, they're a strawberry flavored, like licorice whip. I know some places maybe out west don't have them, they have red vines instead. Similar, but Twizzlers are better. Once the paint's incorporated, I'll roll out a long, thin snake of clay. I'll cut 5 equal lengths. These will be shorter than the real deal, again because they're meant to look like they're, halfway in the jack-o'-lantern. So I'm going to line 3 up side by side, and I'm going to put 2 on top. Just like that. And now I'm going to roll them a wee bit to make sure that they're stuck together. Then, holding each end, I'll gently twist. I'll roll them again, just a wee bit, and then I'll slightly flatten them, ever so slightly. And then I'm going to cut off the ends. So you can see I'm just using my fingers to kind of flatten it out a wee bit. I want it to have a little bit of thickness to it. So now we'll cut off the ends. I made 4 in total, 2 a touch longer than the others. I'll give them a coat of Ceram Coat Watermelon to brighten them up a bit, so they look more like a real Twizzler. I didn't want to add more paint to the clay because it was starting to get sticky and time was of the essence, so I figured this was just as easy. Once they're dry, I'll give them a coat of multi-purpose sealer to add that shine. And there we have them. Look good enough to eat. Now for some saltwater taffy. I'm going to color a small amount of clay with Americana Sour Apple to make one of our saltwater taffies. And I'm going to roll it into a short, stubby log, kind of marshmallow shape. I've rolled some of the orange clay into a small ball, which I'll place on top, and I'm going to flatten it. And I'm going to add some to the flip side too. Just using my finger to press it on, flip it over, and do the same on the other side. I have some wax paper to wrap it in. This wax paper actually separated the foil slices that I wrapped the candy bar in, so make good use of that. Just gonna hold it over and twist the edges, just like, a piece of candy. Now I'm just being goofy. But you know the deal. Just twist the ends. I'll make the next one from leftover black and purple clay with a wee bit of white too. I'll roll them into logs, flatten them, and then I'm going to stack them on top of each other. Now what I should have done is I should have cut them to size before I did anything else for a better swirl. I'll do that next time. Anyway, I stack them black, white, and then purple. So here's where I made the real mistake. By slicing the sides off, that kind of squished all the clay together so that the colors were no longer well defined. It's okay. It worked out in the long run. So now I'm just going to roll it up on itself with the black on the outside, and I'll flatten it a touch with my palm. It's okay. It's going to get wrapped, so that'll camouflage it somewhat, and I'll stick it in the back. And you know what? While we're at it, let's roll the scraps up to make another wee swirl candy. We want nothing to go to waste. So just like before, I'm just twisting it and coiling it up on itself. And again, these make good filler candies. So, look how cute. Okay, and we'll get this guy wrapped. And that's the Saltwater taffies. I did make a third one from more scrap clay. You'll see that in a minute. So the other one was orange and black clay. Okay, on to the button candy. These are super easy. All I did to make these is I flattened out some Model Magic, about a 1/4 inch thick or so, and I punched out 6 wee buttons with my fondant cutter. I'm going to paint 2 green, 2 orange, and 2 purple. You could have mixed the paint in with the clay, of course, but I knew this was, I was only gonna make a few of these, so I figured it was just easier to do it this way. So here's our 6 little button candies, and I'm going to paint 2 pumpkin orange, 2 will be Americana sour apple, and 2 will be ceramic coat passion, which is really pretty purple. I did give these each 2 coats, and then I pounced on some of that multi-purpose sealer with the satin finish to make them shiny. And I only made a few of these because, again, these are just filler candy. Yeah, so there's a good look at them. So now we're going to make a couple of bonbons and a gumdrop. These all have the exact same shape. I rolled a small stubby log, slightly tapering the top to get that bonbon / gumdrop shape. Very easy. Kind of want it almost bell-shaped, but not too bell-shaped. More marshmallowy, I guess. I don't know. Gumdrop shape. And if I didn't mention, this is still Model Magic that we're using here. Okay, so I'm going to flatten it out at the top a wee bit. I mean, you get the idea, right? I paint my gumdrop with 2 coats of pumpkin. And I'm going to pounce on some Mod Podge and sprinkle on some sugar glitter. So that's my gumdrop finished. I've given the bonbons 2 coats of Mississippi mud and sealed them with the multi-purpose sealer. As I said, it has the satin finish, which I thought, looks better for the chocolate. I wanted the bonbons to be in a candy cup, but the cups I had on hand were too big, so I cut the sides from the cups, and I'm going to wrap them around the sides of the bonbon, gluing them as I go. I'm going to use 3-in-1 to attach the foil to the bonbon, and just a wee drop of hot glue here and there to anchor it. Gotta tell you, I was so proud of myself coming up with this because I really wanted these to be in cups and I didn't have any that were the perfect size. So this worked out well. Yay me. To make the nuts for this one, I cut pieces from a skewer and I'm just going to glue them to the very top. I just chipped off little pieces. Yeah, I used scissors and snipped off little pieces of the wood of the skewer. They look okay. I mean, they're convincing nuts, don't you think? Yeah, we're rolling with that. So for the second bonbon, I cut some pip berries from a spray to embellish the top, and I just added a little bit of hot glue and then added the pip berries. And we're done. Here's a closer look. Let's make some cookies. I flattened out some Model Magic to a cookie thickness, and I punched out my circle. I punched out 3 circles, actually. My first cookie is going to be a sandwich cookie like an Oreo. So I paint the clay, all 3, with Americana bittersweet chocolate, both sides. I'm going to use a detail brush and some white paint to add the word boo to one of my cookies. This is going to be the top of the Oreo. And now I spread the other cookie with some of the orange frosting that I made for the donut, and I add the top cookie. Once it dries, I'll seal it with multi-purpose sealer. I'll embellish this wee cookie, or bicky as my husband calls it, with a pumpkin by adding a white dot with a paintbrush handle. I elongate it by dragging the handle to the right, and then I'm going to come in and hand paint in the stem. I'm using white first to make the pumpkin paint brighter. When the white paint dries, I'll go over it with orange paint, and then I'm going to hit this stem with sour apple green. I pounce on some sealer and sprinkle it with sugar glitter, and we're done. And finally, we're going to make a good old-fashioned lollipop. I flatten more clay and use my largest fondant cutter to punch out my lolly. I paint both sides with Ceramcoat Calypso Orange, 2 coats. To embellish, I'm going to load this swirl stamp with some white paint and stamp it in the center. You could, of course, just hand swirl it if you want. I wait for that to dry, then I'll go over top of it with black. Only I stamped it on slightly askew so that some of the white shows through. I pounce on some sealer and sprinkle on some sugar glitter. And I'm going to hot glue lollipop stick to the back. And we're done. Here's a final look at all the candy. Each piece wound up in the head of Candy Head Jack. If you haven't seen that video, that'll be linked below, as well as a link to Cassie Smallwood's channel. You'll also find a list of all of my supplies, paint colors, and whatnot. I hope you enjoyed today's projects. I really had fun making these candies. I'll be making more in the future, I'm sure. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and all that good stuff. Stay creative, my friends. Thanks for hanging with me. See you next time. Up all night with Monica.